Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. And as you already know, this is the number one place where you don't just hear about success stories, but you actually feel them, you learn from them, and you walk away knowing exactly how to apply the lessons in them in your own life and in business. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga. And in case this is the first time you're tuning into the Online Prosperity Show, this is the show for you if you've ever felt like maybe you're doing everything right on the outside, but inside, something feels a little bit off. Maybe you're performing, maybe you're delivering, you're achieving. Everybody's clapping hands for you, but you're left exhausted, you're stressed, and you're quietly wondering, is this what success is supposed to feel like? Well, I was answering those questions myself, but hey, why not bring in an expert, somebody who's actually lived through that, somebody who's even written books about that, and somebody who's also been on the show. So they are going to be walking us through all of this and more. So if today's conversation is going to hit home, which I know it is, make sure you are subscribed to the Online Prosperity Show so that you do not miss out on any of these episodes as they come out. Now, today I'm really excited about the next guest. All right. I've already introduced them before on the show, but in case you missed it, well, I want you to meet Rochelle. Rochelle Macadini.
Magadi. Hi, Prosper. It's so great to be back on the show and to have another wonderful conversation with you. I've come fueled up with my tea.
Absolutely. You see, I was actually laughing with you. I was actually laughing with you before we started. And I was like, I have to be careful, what I say on the show. The last thing I say to you was, hey, you got to come back. And as soon as you write your book and you went on, wrote it, and now you're back. Congratulations.
Thank you, Prosper. I'm so excited about the book. In the first few days, I achieved Amazon bestseller status, and it's like, wow. And, this is a business book. It's a book of me telling people how to live their lives, and it got a bestseller status. So I'm super excited.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations are in order. I'm actually speaking to a celebrity right now. Now,
No,
I
not
should
quite.
actually. Now, for those that are tuning in, I mean, obviously, Rochelle Trow has been on the show before, and she's worked with global giants like Unilever, GSK, and Takeda, and she's also operated at at the highest levels of corporate, and yet she's here talking about fear, nervous systems, and internal regulation. Some things that you never hear being spoken about in the boardroom, but are the very things that make things happen. Because here's the truth. I know a lot of people that are watching this right now, they look like they've actually got it together. We are all trying to be out there showcasing on our LinkedIn profiles, our Instagrams, everything else looking spick span, but internally they're barely holding it together. And obviously, Rochelle's story is very powerful. I'm going to be linking the past episode that we did so that you can actually catch up, especially after this show, because her story is powerful. Because from the outside, everything for her looked like a complete success, but behind the scenes there was a cost. All right, so there are things that we're going to be talking about in here that might resemble your life, your journey, and everything else. I really implore you to just pay attention, and maybe if you've got questions and everything, Rochelle will be able to answer, or she's already answered them in her book. All right, because she's lived it, burnt out. Okay, and then she had to step out for about 11 months and coming back into the same system, and now through the change canvas and her newly authored book Anchored, she's now helping leaders do something most people think is quite impossible, which is stay in high performance environments without losing themselves. So I could go on and talk about things that I'm not even qualified to talk about. I mean, Rochelle is here we might as well hear it from her. So just give us a glimpse of what it was like, Rochelle. I mean, from the outside, your career looked like a dream. Everything on paper was checking out, global roles, high performance. What were people not seeing behind the scenes?
Well, it's simple, We are brought into this world to show or pretend that everything is actually fine. So one of the things that people don't see is that, we have normalized the chaos. We've normalized expecting people to show up calm, professional. That is a normalized state in today's society because it's not acceptable for a leader to walk into the room and maybe be a little unraveled, perhaps be brutally honest, because everything is about how do I appear professional? How do I just appear in this certain way? And so that situation becomes normalized until you, as the individual, are almost like you're watching a movie of your life. You go into a meeting and you're not you. It's like you're watching the sequence unfold in front of you.
Mm,
Why? Because people don't realize the cost on you as a person, the cost of almost performing. I was reading a post the other day, and this person says, it feels like we are actors in a show on a daily basis. And in reality, let's face it, every single person who goes into a corporate system has to perform, has to act, has to project what's expected of them. Now, of course, I'm not saying that that's wrong. We have to accept that a corporate system is built for profit, speed, efficiency. It's the way the world works. We can't change that. But it's not built for human beings. It's not built for you and me. I was actually reading a summary generated by Notebook LM, Google Notebook LM, because I put my book in there and I said, tell me what say about the book. And literally, and it wrote in there the paradox of performance versus wholeness. And it created a table in the summary. And I was like fascinated because it read my book. And this is what it said. I want to read to you. Systems demand certainty. It demands absolute data and predictability. Human wholeness needs doubt, essential space for reflection and recalibration. And I'll read one and only two more for you. Systems demand speed, which is about rapid fire delivery and instant response. Okay, that's an organization. Wholeness needs, and that's a human being, renewal. It's the biological capacity for pause and restoration. And I'll read one last one. Systems demand endurance, rewarding and always on attitude. It's about grit, which leads to depletion of your energy. Wholeness needs honesty and the ability to name your limits and also address your fatigue at the same time. So when you just look at it, this is an AI generated summary of my book. It actually understood it perfectly well because the issue is we face these pressure, but we don't realize we're under pressure because it's so normalized. That's what life was. That's how I showed up.
there's so much to unpack from that. And you know what you're talking about, the whole normalizing everything. It's like everyone has to appear like they're coping, but they're not internally regulated. All right. It's the image that I had while you were talking there was wearing a necktie. All right. Everybody looks at you as a smart individual, but you're actually choking because that tie is suffocating you.
Yeah,
Wow. And people just go
exactly
along with
it.
that. Yeah. Okay. So there's something powerful that you spoke about there, that people are coping, but they're not actually regulated. What's the difference between those two?
Well, regulated is, I mean, I don't want to go into the technical detail because you could read up about that in my book, but there's a lot of science behind this. Regulation is emotional regulation because we have to accept that a human being is built to function in a particular way. We can't separate our head, heart, guts. We can't take out our physiology and expect our body to work. So all these things are interconnected. So when I say regulation in the context of an organization, your body needs to be able to be regulated and safe to operate in that environment because your body is constantly sending signals to you. And if you are not regulated, and I say regulated, I mean emotionally regulated, how you respond is almost a knee-jerk response. Because, for example, if you are afraid, your heart starts beating fast, that is your body giving you a signal that something's not quite right. That's perhaps giving you a signal that you're afraid of something. And then your head starts having this conversation. And the conversation in your head is, oh, this is not good. I better shut up. If I say this, I'm not going to be looked at in the right way. So this whole conversation happens in your head, which is where doubt creeps in. And this conversation keeps going on. So what does it do? And it's looking for safety. So regulation is about how do I make myself feel safe in this environment? And if you've not been taught to be grounded and understand the connection points between your head, heart, soul, body, physiology, how your brain works, how the chemicals in your brain respond to the different triggers in the environment, you will never be regulated. So therefore, what do? You go for safety. How did you form safety? You formed safety before you were even 7 years old. You learned how to respond to the environment in a way that keeps you safe. And it's those safety beliefs that we formed under seven that keep us safe in the corporate world, but they actually, like you describe, it becomes a necktie because the safety mechanism that you learn under seven, an example is, if you grew up in an environment where you were told what you had to do and you were strict parent, you quickly learned, keep quiet, conform. Does that help you in the corporate world? Hell no, because you're an adult. You should speak up. But what happens in a moment of pressure, you immediately revert to that under 7 year old who was, I need to keep quiet in order to be safe in this situation. So what's happening in the corporate world is if you haven't developed emotional regulation and full connection and understanding yourself fully and how our things we learned as a kid shape us, you will always be influenced by the environment. You will start living on autopilot. And in all honesty, your triggers and your responses as an adult, sometimes, especially if you've grown up in a difficult environment, malfunction. You don't respond. So, when somebody says something to you, snap. Which emotionally regulated person snaps? The snapping is that child snapping, not that adult version. And I've said a lot.
Understandable. I mean, obviously, while you're talking, I'm also just referencing because I've got an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old going on 7. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, so we've lost the boat with the 11-year-old, but with the 6 to 7, we've got at least a chance of creating not a fully grown baby who's going to be throwing tantrums at people in some corporate building later on just because nobody did anything to them while they were growing up. All right. So the way that people are actually reacting. So if maybe somebody, obviously, like you, if your natural tendency is to just quiet down and put yourself in a shell, and then if somebody then comes on top of you, that now is the baby that's reacting to that, not the adult in that particular room, which obviously presents a scenario for the leaders now to then stop and understand, am I dealing with the kid here or am I dealing with a fully grown baby?
Well, most leaders don't know that.
Ooh.
Because remember, as an adult, you've learned to adapt your behavior. So you certainly don't act like the 7 year old. You act like the professional corporate person. That's what you're projecting. But inside of you is the 7 year old screaming.
Mm.
Every single leader, well, I shouldn't say this, but I can speak to myself. But it's from all the clients I coach, I see this as well. What
Mm.
comes out of their mouth is sometimes very different to what they're feeling inside.
So there's a disconnect.
They say what they believe the organization or the person or the situation needs them to say. And they do that because they're trying to protect themselves. I mean, let's face it. Look at the modern world today.
You get cancelled if you say the
You
wrong.
get cancelled. You get restructured at the next round of restructuring. If you're not conforming, agreeing, and if you're not challenging some of these tough situations, I mean, who on earth could imagine that people can be made redundant on an email? I'm an HR person. That is unacceptable. I don't care which organization does that. You cannot tell somebody they don't have a job on an email. That is just disrespectful. How much of that have we seen lately? Now, I'm positive those HR leaders and those leaders have followed all the legal processes and justified to themselves that what they're doing is okay. It's because of the volume. No, volume does not stop you from being a human being. Even if you had to tell 7,000 people they don't have jobs, you could have called a call, you could have had a conversation, you could have made yourself available to take questions and communicated it. But to send an email is cold. Think of all those nervous systems of those people receiving that email. I've got to support my family. How am I going to live? What does this mean? All this uncertainty. I've been rejected. Those are not human ways to deal with people. So, to go back to the point on regulation, the leaders who make those decisions almost justify to themselves that what they're doing is okay. Now, I'm not saying they're wrong, okay? Because legally they could probably defend their position because they've ticked all the boxes. What I'm saying is, where has our humanness gone? How do we do these things in a way that respects the human being on the other end? Because the human being is not built for profit. The human being is being impacted by these decisions. So
Mm.
I would question the emotional regulation of the leaders making these decisions because I know that for myself. I put myself in that position. I have kept quiet when I should have spoken up. I have disagreed with something and didn't say it because I thought, oh my God, once again, I'm the only one saying this. I'm going to be, or I'm going to miss my bonus targets if I raise this. Nobody else is disagreeing. It's okay. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe I've missed the point. I've been there.
But also, Rochelle, you would understand, especially in a corporate environment, fish don't see the water that they swim in up until maybe somebody from the outside then points out, wait a minute, that wasn't a worm, that was a hook. But obviously, the fish has already gone out of the water for them to be told that that has happened, which is usually burnout. All right.
Yeah.
Everybody else around, like you say, they've normalized it and everything else is sort of normal. So let's maybe put it back to your own scenario. When did you maybe realize that, yes, you're outwardly looking like a success, but it was actually costing you more than you were willing to admit just because everybody around you was also operating in the same sort of wavelength?
I mean, it's simple. I learned how to cope in that demanding system.
Right.
But that coping started to feel like endurance. Endurance meaning that I just had to keep pushing. I just had to keep going. I just have to keep doing. But my body on the flip side was going, you can't do it, doesn't work. And so therefore my autopilot mode stopped me from making the right decisions about what was right or wrong for me in that moment. Until, and some people, now fortunately, I'm not like some people,
Hmm.
your body can collapse with fatigue. I didn't get there. I got to a point of where I was pushed mentally and I went, no more.
Right.
Okay, so I was forced to stop. I was forced to stop when I was like, I'm not sleeping. I'm hugely overweight. I don't understand what's happening here. I have no joy. I can't even smile anymore. I'm in a beautiful country and I am looking at this amazing landscape. I don't even smile. Where's my smile gone? Why is my face dull? Why do I hate myself because I'm just this massive blob that's uncomfortable and keep having to buy bigger sizes to feel good about myself? I have everything I want, all the money in the world, all the houses, all the comforts, but I'm bitterly unhappy. So for me, it was looking at my life and going, is this what success feels like? Who am I in all of this? If you strip away the title, if you strip away the role of mother, wife, who am I? And it was that question that unraveled me because I couldn't answer it. And it was at that point where I had to take my own advice and go to a doctor and say, this is how I'm feeling. I'm just not me. I'm not sleeping, not binge eating, but I'm eating to push down what I'm feeling. I have to, what's going on? And the doctor said to me, you're stressed. You close to burnout. You have to stop. And the doctor booked me off. So that was my start. But it was the question of who am I that was starting to unravel me.
That's not an easy question to answer.
No, absolutely not, because most people will say, I am Rochelle Trow, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm an HR executive, I'm an author, I'm a this, I'm a that. Well, no, You are not those roles. You are not those labels. Who are you?
You got my brain bending into a pretzel while I was trying to figure
Who are you, Prosper?
and it's one of those poignant questions where you start to really think you try and mask it with, maybe should I answer it with who am I becoming, or who was I before, or who are they going to meet in the next 3 seconds, or things like that. But you
Who
did
am I now, in this moment?
but you did say you found a way around, and obviously maybe before we go there, you actually took 11 months away pretty much after that. Did you find
Yeah.
yourself?
Well, it took more than 11 months, but in the 11 months, I was able to restore my physical energy. I
Hmm.
was able to restore and my mental energy in that my sleep started to improve. I started to feel better. I started to have more energy. I was less overwhelmed by everything and the volume of things because I didn't have that volume.
Hmm.
But I started to, I did a lot of reading because what do we do as human beings? We go straight to our head. Our head seems to govern us in life. So I read loads of books to try and make sense of what I was experiencing. And so in the 11 months, I would say I partially recovered. And that's the point I want to make is you can partially recover from burnout and extreme stress, but it actually takes years to get you back to your full self. And so, if I have to say, how long did it really take me to get back to me and also be able to answer that question, who am I? It was almost 4 years fully. Of course, I went back to work before in the 4 years, but the point is, it took about 4 years.
And for those that are now really caught up in this question, because this is one of the things that really took you out of what it is that you were doing. So many of us, like you said, define ourselves based on titles, roles, or whatever performance we are actually presenting at that particular time. In this instant, I'm the podcast host, which makes you an interviewee. But 30 minutes from now, you're going to be a whole different person that has got nothing to do with the internet or whatever it is that you will be doing. So, who is Rochelle?
Well, that's exactly it. Now, of course, most people will not resonate with my answer. I'll give you the answer, but I want to caveat that with most people will not understand my answer because they have to believe it in order to understand it. Okay. But if you ask me, who am I? I am the vehicle. My body is the vehicle that allows me to experience life. I am passing through life as an observer and experiencing the wonders of life, the good, bad, indifferent. And I'm engaging with it and I'm fully present with everything that unfolds. Okay, because at the source of it, Prosper, is all you are is the soul inside of something that represents you in the world. Like in this moment, I am an interviewee being interviewed by you as the podcast host, but it's my body, it's my mouth, representing me. Okay, but ultimately, when you break it down, you are just a soul flowing through life because you have zero control over stuff. And it's about how do you go through and pass through life, experiencing and enjoying a fulfilling life with everything that you experience. Now, most people will go, she's smoking something really strong saying that.
It's something in the tea. You keep necking it, and I'm just wondering because we
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, look, it's a deeply philosophical question, but it's a place, it's a state of being, understanding your place in the world and that you are, and there's a lot of spiritual connotations to this, so it's not religious, it's spiritual. Ultimately, if you speak to anybody who's deeply spiritual, we are just observers of our life and we souls passing through life. But if you read a book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, he really describes this really well. He does it. I read his book 5 or 6 times, just one book. I've read many of his books, but the book of The Untethered Soul, I read about 5 times before I could even understand it. 5 times. And I'm a smart person, but because it was as far-fetched as the answer I just gave you, I couldn't understand it. But he
Mm.
does make more sense of it. And ultimately, if I put it in something that the average person would understand, we need to learn to be present in our lives and flow with it and enjoy life as it unfolds. That's a simple version of it.
And I appreciate that. Now, let's break it down a little bit because obviously you did mention a few keywords: vehicle, that allows you to observe life and go through life and everything else, right? But it's the very things that you were mentioning right at the start that a vehicle actually needs. You said you were just eating to stop feeling anything. With a vehicle, you've got to put fuel in it somehow for it to move from point A to point B. And you said you were just getting more clothes on there. Of course, with the vehicle, you've got to change the tires and make sure that it's ready and it's roadworthy and things of that nature. So, what was wrong with that?
I was unhealthy. I was literally digging my grave because let's be honest, if you look at what we eat, let me rewind. If I look at what I ate as a 7-year-old growing up in South Africa, a very simple life. Most of our food came from our backyard. Okay. Very simple, non-toxic, all these chemicals
Process.
in it, basic.
Yeah.
I was stick thin. I was the healthiest I ever was. I was fast. I became heavier when I started to drink alcohol, when I started to eat processed foods, when I started to eat all these wonderful things with lots of butters and fats, etc. The bottom line is take us back even to back in the Bible, prehistoric days. People lived simply, they lived off the land. In modern society, everything is ultra processed. So if I only look at it through my health lens, I was killing myself with stuff I was putting in my mouth. So being aware of what we put in our mouth and how that fuels our body is a shift that I needed to make. I've become a nutritarian. I've lost 30 kilograms of body weight. Okay, not by a massive exercise regime and not by dieting, by simply changing what I put in my body. What improved? My sleep. I sleep like I'm dead. Okay. My mental capacity. What used to take me hours to produce takes me a tenth of the time. Okay. My book, this book was written, the first manuscript was written in 1 month. I then gave my 13 reviewers a month to review it. And then I took a week to review their feedback and edit the book. Within 5 or maybe 6 weeks at a stretch of work, I handed the book over to a publisher. When I last spoke to you, I had my book was with, I think it was November. My book was with the 13, or I just handed it to the publishers, or it was with my early reviewers because they had it for 3 weeks to review it. That's what I mean by mental capacity. And this book is not an easy book to write.
I mean, obviously, because
These
what
are
you
just two examples. I can give you many more.
so basically being grounded is just that clarity because once you know who you are, you're clear on what you're not. You're not clear on what you're capable of. You're clear on what actually makes you happy, and you do more of that because you can't do well if you don't feel well. And you no longer have to numb yourself with all these other foods or things just so you can feel alive. It just
Well,
something.
it's a little more complex than that, but yeah, the nutrition,
Mhm.
your body health are two very important components. So there's a lot more to it. It's obviously it's about how do you even get to a place of being able to control your mind? How are you able to get to a place of reading your body signals? So it's more complex than that, but at a simplistic level, all the components of us meet. Our head, heart, gut, body, physiology all have to work together. So, what happens when we're on autopilot? We're not always making the right choices. When we are more self-aware, understand how we're responding in the environment is triggered by old beliefs and patterns. We understand how our body works. We understand how to feed ourselves. We therefore can be more emotionally regulated and therefore respond as an adult with conscious choices, I would say, is the difference.
What you're talking about there is akin to somewhat of a rite of passage, right? Indulge me for a little bit here. I mean, obviously, you would understand you've had experience with, people from my culture and everything else, but maybe they didn't do this. But in my world, when you're about 13 years old or 16, 13 for boys and 16 for girls, you're sort of invited by the village elders, and then they tap you on the shoulder and they tell you it's your turn to lead. But during that week, you're sort of taught just about everything else that you need to know: who to be, how to be, and how to then be an active member and a contributing member of the society. And that's sort of like they call that a rite of passage and things of that nature. And I feel like in the first world that doesn't exist, because when you grow up, you're just going from kindergarten, you're born, kindergarten, high school. From high school you go to university, from university straight into whatever corporate world that is available at that particular time. If you do well, you get a promotion, then you get married, and then kids, and then before you know it, you're already ready for your retirement and everything else. There's not that much of a pattern break. And I feel like Anchored and the experience that you went through was somewhat of a pattern break or a rite of passage. Am I correct in my
Um,
assumption?
I
Yes.
I would say yes, a rite of passage for me because in I mean I grew up in South Africa. I'm mixed race, as you know. Got a Xhosa granny, a British grandfather, an Indian grandfather, and a mixed race grandmother. So I'm fully blended.
Mm,
So for me, I grew up in a Catholic environment, and if anything, I rejected the religion because of the rituals and some of the practices, not because I don't believe in God. I do believe in God. I rejected it because of the conformity and the constraints in it. And so it's not that I didn't have a rite of passage, it's that I rejected that rite of passage because nobody could explain why. It was always you do this because it was like almost like a held as a punishment. If you do this, this is going to happen. But nobody can explain the logic. Being a smart person, and like most people in the world, we're pretty smart. We don't
mm,
just accept anymore. So I wouldn't say that most of the West world doesn't have these rites of passages. I think many cultures have these rites of passages. The question that is probably not answered for many people, and why we get caught up in this Western way of living is because it's beaten into us as opposed to indoctrinated, help us understand, and we're not treated as adults in those rites of passages. Because
mm,
sometimes it becomes, this is how you have to do it, don't question it. That's not the way you respond to a child. If you want a child to develop, you have to help the child understand it from their perspective, not from your perspective of this is the Bible and this is the law. This is the what we follow in our household and this is our way of doing things. Therefore, what becomes attractive to most human beings? We get caught up in the Western way of world. I can progress, I can earn money, I can have a good career, I can have a beautiful home. So we get caught up in the societal traps. And at some point, when you realize that these things that the world views as success factors doesn't feel like success for you anymore, then you start to question it. But not everybody gets to that point.
mm.
People who have burnout get to that point quicker. People who go on spiritual journeys as adults get to that place quicker. So why have I written Anchored? I've written Anchored because we are so caught up in the world today as it is. And the world we live in today is even more complex. Nothing is stopping. AI is taking over. The geopolitical situation is just complete chaos.
Mm,
Organizations have to adapt and respond to the economic fluctuations, the geopolitical situation, AI all at once. So these leaders making these decisions are human beings also. So let's not hold them to these high standards and expect them to be superhumans and have all the answers. These leaders, like I was a leader at the top, are human beings also. So we can also make mistakes. My challenge in Anchor is, for goodness sake, make sure you understand yourself well enough before you make decisions that is going to impact the world. What's missing in today's curriculum as an HR person in leadership development is we teach people on how to perform for the organization, and the organization that already encourages you to dismiss certain things that we spoke about earlier.
yeah.
I believe We have to teach people to get to know themselves better. If they understand themselves better, they will respond better in the organization. And for goodness sake, it's not expensive. So don't go, oh, we can't afford to give everybody coaches. Of course, we can't afford to get everybody coaches. And that's exactly why I wrote this book, because every single human being deserves to understand themselves, deserves to understand that they are beautiful as they are. They've just lost their way in corporate world, in the Western society. Oh God, I could speak for hours, Prosper. Let me shut up.
Oh, you. I was actually looking that, it's a good thing we're in a digital platform. We're not going to run out of tape. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things, and I'm really liking the fact that the book stops becoming a framework. It literally now becomes like a mirror, because every time you're looking at it, you're looking at, am I acting this way? And if not, what is the correct position? Could you maybe walk us through, what was the intention with that?
Well, what was the intention is we don't need another program. We don't need another years of framework. This is how you have to do it. We literally need to understand how to navigate ourselves. And so the book is as simple as that. It's a mirror to say, how do I look at myself? But more importantly, how do I understand myself in the context of the world in which we live in the context of the organization? But also, look at ourselves with compassion, because it doesn't help if we're going to look at ourselves in the mirror and hate ourselves. We have to look at ourselves in the mirror and look beyond what we're seeing physically and know that everything we need is inside of us. So the book is written in a way that meets each individual where they are, because no person is the same. No person needs the same recipe. No person looks in the mirror in the same way. So the book is written in a way that you can literally look at it and say, well, oh well, that's me, but that's not me. This makes sense, but that doesn't make sense. And then you can focus on the part that makes sense for you to start adapting. But
Mm.
yes, it's written like a map. It's written like you've got to go through everything to give you the full picture. But no person needs every chapter in my book. What I think every person needs is how to deal with fear. And so my book talks about, firstly, what are the things that you do that protect you to stay safe in the world? What are those beliefs and how have they become unhelpful to you? Not all of the beliefs are true for everyone. Then it talks about, and what are these anchors that will keep you grounded when you are facing these protective beliefs? But more importantly, as we grow, fear gets louder. Doubt gets even noisier in our head. So, what do you then do with that fear? And ultimately, I break it down to something simple. You like analogies. I'll give you an analogy, the smoke alarm. The smoke alarm in our house serves a purpose. So, if we treat fear as a smoke alarm, it's an early warning signal sign. If it's burnt toast, it's simply, ooh, that might be an old belief that no longer serves me. If it's a real fire, then of course it's going to beep even louder. But the issue with today and the way we live in society is that most of the things triggering us are simply, it's just smoke, it's burnt toast. And I
Mm.
speak for myself. The biggest shift I had to make is to stop blaming the world and accept that the person who controls it all is me. And when I accepted that I can't blame the world, I can't blame the organization for wanting profit, I can't blame the organization for seeking to survive. I chose to be in that organization. Therefore, I should stop blaming my manager or stop blaming whoever else for the situation, but look at myself and say, how am I responding to it?
That thing where they say if you're pointing a finger at somebody, three of them are pointing back at you. But you would also understand the world we live in today, Rochelle. I mean, obviously you're out there in Switzerland and we're busy, snitching on the world in our own little private conversation here, which will then also be taken out to the world. And people might see this and either see themselves in you, or see themselves in me, and already try and live vicariously through other people's lives. I don't think people are being given that opportunity to actually feel anymore, because all of that has been taken away from them based on what it is that they're already watching and seeing online. How can people then literally start getting to understand who they are? when they're being fed all these different versions of people from different walks of life and not knowing what beverages the other people are having on the other side there.
It boils down to choice. Everything is about a choice. I can speak about some of the things that I do to manage my choices.
Right.
I do not watch the news. The news finds me through friends, through conversations I have. I don't even have a television in my house. Okay. I don't watch it. Why? Because there's nothing I can do about it. Can I change the way Trump behaves? Can I change the geopolitical situation? Can I change the current conflict that's causing chaos in the world? I can't. So why am I going to feed myself with that? Because why? Feeding myself with that affects my brain chemicals. So I choose not to watch it. It doesn't mean I don't know what's going on because it finds me when I need to know. Okay, so those are little habits. I leave my phone not in my bedroom at night. It stays outside of my bedroom. I was listening to not a podcast, a talk like this, a live talk on LinkedIn last night, and this guy Peter said he leaves his phone in the car overnight. He doesn't take it in. And the host of the pod of the talk was saying, "Ooh, that's a bit much." And he's like, "Well, what's going to stop if you leave your phone in the car?" And he's right. We choose to engage in the chaos. It's about what do we choose to do with ourselves. I make a lot of choices, not conventional choices, but I am living a happier, fuller, meaningful life because I choose to be aware. So if you want the shortcut, read my book because my book is summarizing lots and lots and lots and lots of books that I've read, giving you the science behind why this works, telling you why it makes a difference. Because you can make a difference by simply understanding yourself in my book. Now, I'm not saying my book's the only book, but what I think makes my book different is I am advocating for you should stay in the corporate world. Stop giving up your job because you're blaming the job for your unhappiness. It's not the job, it's actually you. I'm advocating for people to stay in their roles, fix themselves before they make big choices about life. And I'm telling you how you can do that. And what's different about my book is the fact that many books that are written beautifully but deep. I love Brené Brown's work, but she goes deep into the theory. My book is a practical lived experience. It's written like a coaching conversation. And it gives you choice. It doesn't tell you what to do. It gives you a landscape of what you could look at and it asks you questions. That's what I think differentiates my book. And of course, if you can't afford my book, that's okay. I will send you a digital copy if you write to me. And if you don't want to read the long book and you want the short version, you can go on my website, rochelletrow.com, and I've got all these free resources broken down that you can access for free. Writing this book is not about making money. Writing this book is about giving it to people to learn about themselves. I feel passionately about this, which is why I'm sure most people are saying that's why you're a bad business person and not making enough money. And it's true.
That I like that. I like that. But you know what I'm hearing here, Rasham? It's not that the system changed. The system is going to be what it is. The algorithm is going to be what it is. You just stop letting the system define your internal state. And I think that is a level of freedom that so many people do not know exist. And the fact that you're saying they can get access to that freedom just by thumbing through your book, I think that is powerful. And because most people think freedom comes from having to change environments or becoming a whole different another person, but your story shows that freedom just comes from changing how you show up inside of those environments, because wherever you are, there you are.
I know. I know. Prosper, I'm making tough decisions at the moment. My business doesn't make a lot of money at all because I believe so passionately about this, but I'm fortunate. I at least built up savings to be able to ride this wave. But am I not afraid every day? I live in the most expensive country, or one of the most expensive countries in the world, that I'm going to meet my commitment payments at the end of the month. Of course, I worry. I live my book every day because this world keeps us in the state of constant ambiguity, change. That's the only constant, is that it's never going to be the same. So this book is written from a place of you can do it, but you have to believe in yourself and you've got to shine the light on the things that you have already. Stop looking for more. Everything you need is inside of you if only you understood your inside. And so my children, I'm sure when they look at me, they kind of go, oh gosh, we've moved, we've downsized, or I should say we've right-sized for the life I want. But they don't understand my choices. I'm putting everything on the line because of what I believe in this book.
I
I'm
mean,
spending my money to make this book get out into the world because
understandable.
I
And
believe it's so important. And I know it's going to make a difference to even my kids who I speak about it daily. They're almost 18, doing their final, international baccalaureate at school in Switzerland. So they understand this. They live it.
understandable. And obviously, with a lot of effort towards something, good results will come. But let me just throw one more at you. I mean, there's a belief that if you slow down, you fall behind. You were talking about, I've got all these obligations that I got to put out there. I got to make sure that I meet my obligations. You know what I mean? That whole fear of survival at the least, And from what I've seen, is that actually true, or is just the thing that's just causing people to continuously keep telling themselves that I need to be constantly doing this or taking on more just so that I can meet my obligations? I love what you said, right sized. Are we just buying and being big for the sake of being big without actually looking at, is this right or does it actually fit me?
The bottom line is, unfortunately, all the signals, all the marketing campaigns, all the way organizations are built. If you look at the organization performance systems and talent processes, they all suggest that in order for you to climb the corporate ladder, you've got to do certain things. So those subliminal messages that you're being fed through the marketing, consumerism, all these things influence how you see life. So I thought that success meant having all these houses, having a successful career, getting to the top until it wasn't. So the question becomes, what does success look like for you? So for me, success now is very different to what I saw success. But my success in the past was driven by what I was seeing in the environment. When you become connected with yourself, you are better able to answer the question, what does success look like for me in this world? And at the moment, for me, it means right sizing my life and making it simpler because I don't want to be having a life full of chaos. I just want a simple existence. When we look at when I left London, I left a 6 bedroomed house. We moved into a 5 bedroom and then I moved to a 4 bedroom. Now I'm in a 2 bedroom, but I'm in a 2 bedroom because my kids are moving to the UK soon. Do I need 3 bedrooms when they're not even going to live with me? No, I don't. So the choices I make, I've got to right size for the future. So in the past, we make decisions based on what everybody else has. I need a better car than my neighbor. I need a better car than my brother. Whatever your competition radar is what drives you. When you are looking at success against your own internal measure, it becomes very different.
I
I
like
am most successful. I still have money. I still have properties in other countries, but I live in Switzerland in a simple, humble beginning, but it gives me the ability to write, spend time on LinkedIn engaging, and it gives me time to do things like this. So yes, I'm a bad business person. I do have clients as well, but maybe not enough.
Well, I don't know who you're comparing yourself to. You're a success in my eyes. The fact that you can go out, say, okay, I'm gonna come back, and you actually do it. Not a lot of people can bet on themselves and actually come out a winner. So to me, you are a big success, and congratulations on all the things that you have done, and the fact that you are being selfless in the process, so you can actually help others get the mirror, and they can be do and have a happier existence. So, if anyone has ever said anything, you're literally going to be changing the worlds of those that are going to be in touch with this book anchored, and I don't take that lightly. So
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I appreciate that. But yes, if it makes a difference in one person's life, I will be happy.
absolutely. Now, the last time I said this to you, you went on and created, and now we're back again. Now, Rochelle, you know what I'm about to ask you. What's next?
What's next? In my state of just living in the moment, at the moment, I'm just flowing. I have this at the back of my mind, I'm aware that my kids are going to university. People keep saying, where are you going to live when they go to university? I keep saying I'm going to live in Switzerland, but at this point, I can't even tell you if I can afford to live here and maintain the other countries where I have existence. So at this point, I cannot tell you what's going to happen. But what I can tell you is that I'm going to continue to push anchored. I spend a few hours every day on LinkedIn. Yes, I spend some time coaching. I also have spent a lot of time writing for different publications and articles in the media, contributing to that. And of course, I need to work on getting more clients in order to sustain myself. But I've also said to myself, listen, stop putting pressure on yourself. You've budgeted, you've right-sized, you've planned. You could probably do this for another year before you have to make a decision. So I'm trying to ride the wave of how do I just continue doing what I'm doing until I really have to make a decision on what do I do when the kids go to university, because I don't want to be alone in this country.
Absolutely.
Am I worried about being alone? No. Do I know what's going to happen? No. Am I okay with not knowing what's going to happen? Yes, I'm okay because it's not stopping me from doing. So some people get caught up in, we don't know what's going to happen, so they try to do stuff. I'm just saying, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing because I know what I'm doing is adding value.
Totally right.
Naive, some people would say. So I
Totally.
don't know. Maybe another book. I have zero clue.
Well,
I haven't written one yet.
if there's gonna be another book, then that means you're gonna have to promise to come back on the online front.
If I write another book, I will definitely come back. But at this point, no. I feel like the message I have in this book is worth pushing,
Absolutely.
is
And
worth helping. And you know what? I may even go back into corporate because I can cope. But if I do go back into corporate, I want to make sure that I continue to do the work of Anchored.
mm,
Because even if I'm back in corporate, it doesn't mean I can't stop pushing what Anchored stands for and what it means and what it can do for others. It doesn't mean I have to stop coaching. I can keep coaching. The difference is if I go back to corporate, I'd have to do the coaching pro bono, which is fine, and I'm happy with that. It means I can achieve my philanthropic goals.
absolutely. Well, this was an incredible conversation, Rochelle. Like, I think from the time I spoke to you earlier to who I spoke to today, it was free flowing and you really were anchored. And I really, really appreciate the person you've become. So thank you so much for the journey that you've taken.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And for those that are watching right now, if you've taken anything from today, I hope it's something along the lines that you don't have to live your life, to have to feel better in it. You just have to literally be, do, and have whatever it is that you can and be regulated in the process. And you don't have to sacrifice yourself in the process. All right. And most importantly, just remember that you're not stuck. Yes, you may have been operating without the tools to help you stay grounded, but I think with Anchored, you will definitely find your way. So if this episode resonated with you, I encourage you to share it with somebody who maybe looks like they've got it together, but they might be actually carrying more than they show on the surface. And if you're ready to just stop coping and start leading your life from a place of steadiness, I'm going to be putting all the links for you to either get in touch with Rochelle or grab yourself a copy of Anchored. And I actually encourage you to buy a few more copies so that you can help others be, do, and have a happier existence. Because, like she said, it's not just a book, it's a reset, it's a mirror. All right. So if you really want to see who you are becoming, I encourage you to grab the book for yourself and gift it to somebody else who might actually need it. I can't wait to see what you're going to do with this information. Thank you so much, Rochelle, again for gracing us with your presence. And I just wish we could go on and on, but yeah.
I know I'm too passionate about what I talk about, but
Absolutely.
thank you once again for having me on the show. I really enjoyed our conversation as always.
Absolutely. And for those that are still watching right now, I want you to answer in the comments below. Answer if you are performing or you're truly present in your life. I can't wait to read those comments in the comment section. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.